I've noticed that a lot of people have been coming into therapy with the following expectation. If I understand this, then it should change. And when that doesn't happen, people can feel confused by this. They can receive it as a failure. I'd like to talk a little bit about why I believe that expectation doesn't really hold up, and why insight can still matter without necessarily offering that immediate relief. So for most of my life, I thought I was just disorganised. I would forget things, I'd lose things. I could get lost walking to the local shop. I could walk through a corridor at work without having a clue of what I was actually meant to be doing. I could be told something very clearly and explicitly, only to forget it again a moment later. I've literally just told you, Tim, weren't you listening? And fair enough. From the outside, it probably looked like I wasn't even trying, but from the inside, it felt like there was something really quite badly wrong with me. So what did I do? Well, I over-prepared, I overcompensated, I watched other people very closely to try my best to copy them so I could blend in, to be normal. But underneath this was years of quiet shame. Then at the age of 35, I was diagnosed with ADHD, and on this occasion, gathering that information, that insight, did offer me an immediate relief. Not because it cured me in any sense. I mean, it certainly didn't. I still live with the symptoms of ADHD quite severely to this day. But what it did do was change the relationship that I had with myself in relation to these parts of life that I really struggle with. Those years of disorganisation, overwhelm, forgetfulness, my mum having to text me that it was bin night every Monday, it wasn't evidence that I was incapable, lazy, or any type of moral deficit. And the insight also gave me permission to forgive myself. I mean, well, partly at least anyway. And it also gave me permission to focus on the things that I was good at, and perhaps just give a little bit less energy to the things that I was never built for. I mean, perhaps I could learn how to dismantle and rebuild a trampoline, or fix my own push bike, or hang a door. But a lot of the times, for me, these things just aren't worth it. But unfortunately, not all insight works that way. Another example I'd like to give would be understanding my own attachment style. I could trace it, I could figure out where it came from, I could recognise certain patterns and how those patterns once made sense to me in order to make me feel safe. But despite gathering all this knowledge and information, my behaviour didn't change. The pulls were still there. These patterns were deeply ingrained, and they were built early on in my life over many years, and they were held firmly in place by my nervous system. Learning about them was only the first step. It was not the outcome. And I believe this is where people often get stuck. They assume that insight is supposed to bring relief. And when it doesn't, they can either chase more knowledge, more insight, or they can give up, decide it's not worth it, and switch the PlayStation back on. And I suppose you can't blame them. Insight brings things into focus. It creates clarity, and that clarity can make things feel worse before they get better. So if you're feeling terrible about your insights and you're not making any progress with it, then you can understand how it doesn't really seem worth it. But some patterns aren't waiting to be understood. They're waiting to be lived with differently, slowly, imperfectly, over time, in order to create that change. So if insight hasn't changed anything for you, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's failed. It could just mean that it's done exactly what insight is supposed to do, and that's make something visible. But what it does do is removes the excuse of not knowing exactly where you are standing